help us do so, who better than the athletic director, Tom Holmoe, to recap those 10 years and even take a look into the future. He joins us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Tom, great to have you on the show. How are you?
Thanks, guys. Always good to be here.
All right, let's rewind roughly a decade to the beginning of this independence journey. If you can go back that far, a lot's happened. What led to BYU initially seeking independence?
I think certainly it came down to television and exposure for our team. We have Cougar Nation across the country, unlike few other teams that can say that maybe there's a handful. And our people just weren't able to see our games. We tried to see if we could remedy that situation with our conference and couldn't. So we made a decision to take a shot on our own, go independence, and take that plunge and see if we can get that exposure that we needed so much.
Tom, when did the conversation and even the idea, frankly, start to where, okay, is this a possibility and how would this work? And what role did ESPN play in that?
Well, it started actually for a couple of years before we actually made the decision to break away and go independent. And as that during those 2 years of period, 2-year period, we felt that it was important to be good partners in a conference. We tried to work those things out, and we've hashed this out before. But during that period is when we thought, what are the alternatives? What are the other possibilities? Obviously, there's other conferences, but those are difficult to join. And so what about the possibility of independence? And so we fleshed out independence. We felt fairly well. We thought we would know exactly what we're getting into. But through those 10 years, independence has been a little bit of a roller coaster ride.
Do you go independent if ESPN's not part of the equation?
No, there's no way you could have done it because we wouldn't have been able to get a TV contract. We would have been able to it would have been a very big risk. We would have had to find things here and there, but with ESPN and with the contract that we had, we knew that we had that constant broadcasting partner that could get our message, get our games, get our individual coaches and players and teams out to all of Cougar Nation.
Yeah, without question, ESPN was the clear catalyst to creating that exposure for BYU football that you brought up initially and the access for BYU fans to follow BYU football, among other teams, also BYU TV a part of that. But, Tom, what do you feel, aside from the exposure and access, what makes you feel like independence was the right decision?
Well, I think if you look through the years, we could say, what if we would have stayed in that same situation? That's speculation, purely speculation. I don't know what would have happened in that case. We went independent. And so you look at some of the positives that happened. We had an opportunity to play in some big games across the country, all over the nation, in great stadiums. We were able to recruit certain players that would come in to see and be able to play in those games. I think that was a key. I think you said it a little bit on the last segment that BYU TV had a big role in this because BYU TV and all the games that we were not able to broadcast on the Olympic level were now being independent. We could do everything we wanted, anything we wanted to be able to build that brand with BYU TV Sports and BYU Athletics. And so I don't think you could just say it's just athletics and just ESPN. You have that also that third piece, which is BYU TV Sports, which broadcasts, and then all the information, of course, Sports Nation, and just there's no other school in the country that gets that exposure.
I'll be Venmoing you at Tom Holmoe a little bit later, Tom. We appreciate that. What role, if any, did Utah play in this? Because Utah and BYU have tried to go together forever, and then obviously there's sort of this split, Pac-12, independence. What role did that play, if at all?
That's a good question. I think the role that it played was in two parts. One, we had a really strong conference when we had Utah and TCU and BYU, not to mention the other consistently good teams in the Mountain West Conference. When TCU left and Utah left, it kind of left us in a position where the strength of the conference wasn't good. I don't think you would have seen us going independent if we would have still had Utah and TCU in the conference.
If only one of them goes, do you maybe stay with the other?
I don't know. I think if it was Utah and BYU, we probably would have stayed. But that's, again, speculation.
Yeah. Now, this next question may be just bathed in recency bias, but we need to ask it. Because of the 2020 season and BYU's independent status, you have the autonomy to cobble together a schedule and become one of the darlings of college football when other conferences and teams primarily were shut down. So some people feel like the 2020 season alone was enough to validate the decision to go independent 10 years ago. I think that's a little bit myopic, but how do you see that scenario?
Yeah, I would agree with you. 10 years is a long time, and I don't know if one season could really make up for if people didn't like the previous 9. I don't think that's true. But I think that it kind of culminates at the end of a decade. Some of the things, if you're going to ask what are some of the best parts, I think the big games and then this season. Now, look, we had a couple of good seasons in there, but this one was probably the best considering all the situations that came into being with COVID. But I would say that you can't say independence. I wouldn't say independence could be validated for everyone because of 2020.
Were you immediately validated when going independent, or was there moments or games or seasons that sort of, or moments that sort of validated the decision in your mind?
No, I was nervous and anxious about what was the unknown. We felt that we had done our due diligence and in researching it and looking at the many other schools, I shouldn't say many, the number of schools that had gone independent for some period of time in their history, Penn State, Florida State, obviously you look at Notre Dame, and then there's some other smaller schools, lesser known schools. But we went into it with faith, hoping that the things that we'd thought of would be great. And we knew we'd have some challenges. And as it is 10 years later, some things were great, and there are some big challenges. And I think those have been discussed and talked about a lot. But I think moving forward, we are still independent this year. There will be some things that will be good. We'll have a really good schedule, play great teams, but it'll be difficult in that for the same reasons and hurdles that have maybe been there in the past if we don't get off to a good start, if we don't win our fair share of games.
BYU Athletic Director Tom Holmoe with us on BYU Sports Nation. Here's a loaded question, and I'm sure that a lot goes into this, but why not ask it? What's the closest BYU has come to joining a conference in the first 10 years of this independence run?
Well, I think it's plain and obvious that we made a run in the Big 12. They put out like an RFP. We went in there. They invited us to come in and make a presentation. It was pretty public at the time. And then the Big 12 made a decision to go in a different direction. That's for sure the closest that it's been. There's been discussions. There's things that happen behind the scenes that are very private and confidential, and those things never get out. I don't want to say discussions, but I would say we're always looking for what's best for our football program. And it would be, I would be remiss if I didn't look at every opportunity and take the calls that come in that have questions about where we are at what time and what we're looking for. So I think those conversations have occurred almost every year, if not every year, very often in that 10-year period. And I would assume that they will continue until we continue to make independence better and better and better or find another league.
Tom, when you went independent, how long did you think you'd be independent?
That was hard. We did not put a year on it. We did not use a time frame. We thought we would use it to the best of our ability and improve our position and make it better than what it was in hopes that something better than independence would come along. We didn't go into independence thinking that would be the cure-all. We didn't anticipate that it would be like Notre Dame, where you're independent for decades and decades and maybe a century. Totally different issue with us. But here we are 10 years later, and I don't know if that's over under what the Vegas line would have been.
I think it was 5.5, so hit the over. I've compared BYU football's situation with independence and conference affiliation to a marriage. You're divorced from the Mountain West, you're single, perhaps there's a suitor. Obviously, Power 5 would be kind of, it seems like the end game. Is that the end game for BYU football? Would a Power 5 invite be something that all of a sudden, yes, you take that and you make certain concessions because that's where the powerful teams are in terms of money and access?
Certainly, that would be what we've been looking for. I've made that public for years. I think that question comes up every single year with the media, and I don't think that my answer has changed. I think, and I've said in the past that, or I believe that our student athletes should have the best opportunity, the most opportunities to play against the best student athletes and the best teams in the country. And I think the way you do that is playing them every single week, meaning that you're in an Autonomy 5 conference, you're playing a very difficult schedule against the best teams and players, and that's what I'd like to see our players and teams and coaches have.
Tom, we're looking at highlights of BYU winning at Camp Randall in 2018 against Wisconsin, at Neyland Stadium in 2019 against Tennessee, the home win against USC in 2019 a week later following that Tennessee triumph, not to mention multiple wins over Texas. These are all pinnacle moments. For you, what are your pinnacle moments within independence both on and off the field?
Man, I don't, it's hard for me to pick a game. It's almost like your children. Hey, which one of your children's is your favorite?
I have a favorite kid, Tom.
I think that I just remember a lot of the big games and the big wins. And those are the ones that's what we went for. So to say that one of them made it all worthwhile, I don't think that's true. But I think once we got the first one, we knew there could be a second one. And now we're trying to get more and more and sooner in between.
Do you expect expansion in the next couple of years? Because obviously that's a hopeful window for a Power 5 invite, but there's TV contracts. We talked about it on Media Day earlier. Do you expect it to happen?
When you say expansion, I don't think you're going to see this this earthquake where everything shakes up. But I do think that you perhaps could see a P5 conference add some teams, or they could change conferences like they have in the past. I just think that some of those P5s are so strong that they won't need to shake up. It would be more an adjustment. And those will be predicated on their TV conference, their broadcast agreements. And so you'll see those happen maybe at different times. I think that this CFP change that looks to be coming, the proposals are out there and everybody's reading about, in combination with some of the conference contracts that are running out and will be renewed. If it's going to happen, those will be the times that it would happen. Those are in different years. So without saying which ones come up when and which looks to be the best, those are decisions that those conferences will make. We would like to be a player when it comes down to our football program and how that would go.
Would you take a football-only invite?
Yeah, I mean, we really enjoy the WCC and what it does for our Olympic teams in relation to where we are in football right now as an independent. But those P5 conferences, what I'm saying and suggesting is not just for football. I mean, if you were in the SEC, the ACC, the Pac-12, the Big 10, the Big 12, you would have an opportunity for our women's soccer, women's volleyball, baseball, men's tennis, men's basketball, women's basketball, football, all of them to be playing against the best teams, the best student athletes in the country week after week. And so I think that when you look at the P5s, that would be a situation where you could, and you probably would, and hopefully go as a group. But there's possibilities that it could happen with football only. When I say there's possibilities, if it came up, I just don't know if a conference in P5 would have that in mind. It just doesn't seem like that's been something that's popped up.
Well, Tom, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what BYU has been able to do in Independence in terms of facility upgrades and raising the level of competition. Yet there is this widening financial gap between Power 5 schools and Group of 5 schools. BYU's somewhere in between because of the relationship with ESPN, among other things, an incredible fan base. So where does BYU fit in financially, and how do you maintain that level of competition when you clearly aren't getting the TV revenues that the Power 5 conferences are?
We do it through Cougar Nation. Look, it's no secret that the gap continues to widen between the Autonomous 5 or the Power 5, P5, and the Group of 5. I think BYU as an independent has a little bit of an independent stance in there. We can move, a little bit further away from the Group of 5 some years. Some years maybe we move a little bit closer and back into the Group of 5. But I think that it's always important to know that BYU Athletics is not going to make a decision based solely on money. We can't do that. We never have done that. But that gap that's created is a situation. It presents a situation where we have needed more capital, and that's where Cougar Nation comes in. In the last number of years, as the P5 makes more and more money in their broadcast rights and the other revenue streams that they have as members of P5 schools, we've relied more heavily on our Cougar Nation and those donors and gifts and sponsors and all those great people that have helped us stay alive. We're doing well, but that gap, as it widens, we have to be following them. But there'll be a limit at some point in time. Where that point is, I'm not sure.
Okay, in 10 years from now, we're actually going to do the 20 years of independence show. So could you give us a sense?
Somebody else.
Are you going to be retired by then?
Yeah.
Less than 10 years from Tom Holmoe, we know. If you could stay, that'd be great. I think you've been awesome. What do the next 10 years look like for BYU football as you navigate all these different things we've talked about?
I think it'll be exciting. I think it'll be invigorating. I think it'll be thrilling. If you looked at last year, and if that's an indication, right now, this snapshot of where we are is a good spot. I think maybe some of the pessimists would look back and say, yeah, but what about that year where you kind of faded? College athletics is very difficult. We'll be dealing with NIL in the near future. We'll be dealing with the transfer portal. We'll be dealing with mental health issues that are occurring throughout the country in all aspects of society that affects college athletics. A Supreme Court decision just came out today that might change things. If you're in athletics right now in administration, it helps to have played in games where the first quarter is different from the third quarter and overtime is different from warmups. Whatever happens in the next few years will be dependent on our preparation. We have vision, we have goals, we have dreams, we have plans, but we also have to react to the things around us. We hope that we don't always have to react. We hope that we've planned out enough and we're proactive enough to where we can chart our own course. But as we've learned in conferences or as an independent, you always have to be on your toes and be able to adapt to the situation that comes your way.
Tom, this has been a fantastic and very insightful conversation. We certainly appreciate the time that you give to us and fans across BYU Sports Nation. Let's give you some karma just for your life as you push towards retirement, whenever that is.
Yeah, Tom, breaking news with the decade. He won't be here in 10 years.
If I'm talking independence in 10 years from now and I'm still here, that will be something that your karma would have been. That would have been a karma. Sure.
Thanks so much, Tom.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you so much.